Bangladesh 430 and 47 for the loss of 3. West Indies 259, an overall lead for Bangladesh of 218. You're watching Anything Cricket Test Match Watch. We're discussing Test Match number 1, day number 3. Welcome to Jason King, Basil Butcher Jr., Wayne Holder, and Ayana Holder. What a day. Maybe not a surprising one, but probably a bit disappointing for many West Indies fans. Jason King, welcome to Anything Cricket.
Good day to you, Philip, and the other members of the panel. Thank you for inviting me, and looking forward to participating in what is becoming a very, very popular show.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Hopefully we are popular for all the right things. As Basil Butcher, one of those who has been following the show for a while and recently made his debut, as you are in this episode, Jason. Basil Butcher, welcome again.
Thanks to you, Philip.
So, Wayne, you had hoped that West Indies would be batting at the end of the day. You didn't get your wish. Put things in perspective.
The West Indies now basically in a salvage mode from this position, having conceded a lead as many as 171 on first innings, having to bat last on a pitch that is not going to get any better. I think the West Indies may very well be hoping that some of those monsoon rains that sweep across Bangladesh from time to time would be a timely time for us to have some of that. Other than that, though, West Indies, well, let me put it this way. I have learned, I'm a slow learner, Philip. I admit that I am a slow learner. It has taken me all these years to identify what the real problem is with West Indies. You remember on the first 2 days, West Indies were able to put together two very good sessions. And then it always happens after 2 good sessions, they seem to fall away, not being able to put together 3 consistently high quality sessions from day to day. And it has been a trend with West Indies, with the West Indies team, where they get themselves into some very good positions. I'm repeating myself. They get themselves into some very good positions only to squander those positions. And yesterday, well, today, the third day of the test match was another example.
Ayana, you tend to be very clear about what you're looking for on any given day's play. I suspect that you didn't get everything you wanted on day 3.
No, I did not get everything I wanted, but I'm going to share something with you all. It might make you laugh. I set my alarm for around 11:25 last night, right? And I got up, I turned on the television, and the first thing I saw was Taiju Islam celebrating. I actually thought I was having a nightmare because I tell myself it's only 11:30. That got to be the first ball of the day.
I can tell you, I'm surprised you did. I thought you were going to tell me that you immediately turned it back off and that was that.
No, I had committed to watching the entire day. I went to sleep, had my nap, had a snack, and I said I am watching the entire day's play. I continuously asked for consistency. I was very, very, very impressed with the innings that Kalmir's played. Was a bit gutted by the dismissal. I guess the inexperience didn't persuade him to take the review. I thought Blackwood would have nudged him. Mentioning Blackwood, you know that's my horse. Gutted again that he didn't carry on to make another 100. He's been having a very good 6 to 9 months after his return to Test cricket. And to add to what Wayne has said, the collapse that I watched surely has to be a mental thing.
Well, you talk about Kyle Mayers, and I suppose, you know, bittersweet, very, very good innings, if only a bit too short. And I'm wondering what his clubmate, Jason King, thought of the effort of Kyle Mayers and his take on the day's play generally. Jason.
Thank you, Philip. First of all, I do want to say congratulations to Kyle on making his test debut. I remember being at the club about 2 years ago, and Kyle was recovering from an injury which he'd suffered while being part of the Windwards franchise. And he was working with his father that morning, and his father and I would have played a lot of club cricket together. And I said to him, based on your age, this is the time you now need to make sure is yours. When you do come back from this injury, make it the last injury that you have to come back from, because at late 20s, you're not likely to get another chance at top level cricket. He had not made the ODI or T20 side as yet, but he was on his way. He was definitely on the radar, because an attacking batsman, if you bowl a nonsense ball, it is going to get hit away. He's probably one of the persons that I have seen tap the crease hardest in my entire life. I've never seen anyone, as we would use in Bajan parlance, ring their bat into the ground while tapping, waiting for the bowler to come in. I think the innings was decent. It's a decent start at best. My bar is set very high. I've been around cricket my entire life, and I've seen and been part of a lot of good cricket. So I set my bar very high. I want to encourage him to continue, but as we saw in the one-day internationals, the 2 one-day internationals, there is some difficulty with playing spin and a bit of indecision. And you can't be indecisive at that level. Even if you are beaten somewhat and you're not sure, you still have to be consistent. I remember he made a first-class 100 against the Windward Islands. And whichever the innings it was that he did not make the 100, he was bowled by an arm ball from Shane Shillingford. And I went back and I recorded the ball on my phone and sent it to his father and coach. And I said to him that something had to be done, because if he's being bowled that easily by that ball by Shane Shillingford, when he gets to international level, what's going to happen is similar to Devon Smith, where they're going to bring an off spinner who's going to turn a couple balls and bowl some arm balls at you. And if you're not good enough to defend there, you're going to struggle at the higher level. And I mean, the 3 dismissals on tour are a result of that indecision and basically being unsure as to what the ball is doing. Is it a situation where he doesn't know from when the ball leaves the hand what it's going to do? Is he just trying to play off the wicket? Or is he just really and truly not sure? But that's something that you have to get covered if you are going to play and dominate at that level. And the other small thing, and most people, I look at the fine points. Having been a wicket keeper for a few years, I always watch batsmen's feet. And you will realize that when these guys are playing spin, their back foot is not really moving. Even Craig, unless he was going down the wicket, the back foot didn't move. And you can still move both of your feet while playing spin, because it gives you a different angle to what the bowler is expecting. So that's one thing that I believe they can improve on. Overall, on the day's play, I think the West Indies continue to miss the trick. The game is 5 days long. You have to think about the scenarios that are available for the rest of the day. Now, having lost your top order so easily, and then Bonner early, you're up against it. You're 3 wickets down for 70 odd, chasing 430, which your team makes in the first innings, and there's no first innings points. So your score is not going to necessarily influence the game. From you're not in a tournament, you're not going to get more points for that. However, you need to get as close as possible to that score while taking up as much time. So the back end of our innings today, where we lost the last 5 wickets for 6 runs, was critical to the game, because if they had taken up more time, one, and made a few more runs, now that you have Bangladesh 40 odd for 3, the lead would not be 218. And even if Bangladesh, for whatever reason, somebody was brave and there was rain predicted for the 5th day and they decided to declare no, I'm not sure that we would make the 218. But that's an option that they have because of how poorly we played at the back end of our innings. You have to think the entire game for the entire game. It keeps you in the game. Even if you're behind, you can still get back into the game depending on how you approach the game.
Well said. And Basil, what were the positives, though, if any, that we can take from the third day's play?
The batting of Braithwaite, Bonner to a lesser extent, Mayers, Blackwood, and De Silva. I saw some fight, something that we don't normally see, with the partnership between Braithwaite and Bonner. That was 50-odd partnership, and then Mayers and Braithwaite another 50-odd, and then the 99-run partnership. One of the things also, the positive I would say too, is that Mayers, Braithwaite, and Bonner, they were out defending, if you will, and the way Blackwood and De Silva, they were out with lapse of concentration. Those 2 wickets, those 2 guys, they wasn't good balls. They were not wicket-taking balls, the way they got out. And so I am somewhat heartened to see that improvement in terms of us putting together some kind of partnerships, in the facing conditions that we are not so versed at, and plus spin is not our strength playing, so I heard some comments on the chat group, people talking about fire the batting coach and all of these various things, and I'm like, let's look at the positives of what came out of this. And then and to show the fight, we came back and took 3 wickets in the last session there. So I'm seeing some progress. And that's why when I look at West Indies team play, I am at this juncture, I'm always looking to see, are we improving in areas? Are we making some steps in the right direction in areas that we have been lacking? And we made some. I mean, it's not, and then I am a realist. I know the level of skill of our players, right? In compared to the guys they're going up against. So I'm not going to expect to see a Clive Lloyd team performance when they go out there, So I am somewhat, I am probably one of the few West Indian fans today that is somewhat pleased with what we did. Where I'm displeased is the way Roach, Cornwall,
the lower order batsman.
I mean, Roach of all people, Roach is usually a guy that sticks around. Who to approach now? He is a shotgun. You know, after you saw how the other guys fought and fought and fought, and you're gonna just throw it away. He is usually one of our most reliable bowlers when it comes to batting that you could count on to stay, you know. And then Cornwall, what is he thinking is a 50 over game? We got to bat out to the next day. And well, I don't know what Mr. Warken get down on his knees there, what he was trying to do. You know,
Probably pray.
A 2020 game that he's gonna flip it over or something. I mean, these guys made me stay up to watch that part. I was so disappointed with those.
Wayne Holder is a guy who has been following cricket for a while, and not only following the cricket, but following it with an analytical eye. So he knows that it's just not about firing this person and firing the next person. He'll be firing and hiring and hiring and doing all that for the last 25 years, and it's made absolutely no difference. So I know Wayne Holder will become much better than that with his take on what happened during the day.
Well, Philip and the others, you know, I started out by saying that I admit to being slow mentally. And it has to do with the fact that I am convinced that no, after all of these years of following cricket, that I have my finger on the pulse of what is the real problem with West Indies cricket.
Who are you going to fire in?
We're not firing anybody. We're going to fire up. We're going to get fiery. But no, listen. We talk about skills. We talk about technique. We talk about talent. And we all acknowledge that all of these things exist in the West Indies. I think that where we are falling down is in the mental skills area. We have a graduate in sports science on the panel who may know a bit more about this than I do. But I am now convinced that the West Indies really is losing it and have fallen behind mainly because of the weakness in that area of mental skills, the mental stamina that is required to compete successfully at the highest level in any endeavor. And it is an area that we are going to have to pay very, very primary attention to immediately. It has nothing to do with skills. It has nothing to do with technique, but I shouldn't say it has nothing. It doesn't have as much to do with skills and the techniques and talent and all those things. We just need to master those mental skills, and you're going to see West Indies cricket start to climb again.
So let's hear from the person on the panel who you're talking about with this scientific background.
There are two areas that I want to touch on. Jason mentioned he recorded a dismissal of Kyle some couple of years ago and showed it to his father. And when we talk about science, science isn't only the psychological part, but it's also the technological part. And it appears to me with all of our West Indies players that we are not utilizing the technology in a way as to improve our players. I read an article with an interview by the India's batting coach. And he outlined that majority of the planning going into the Australian tour was a more theoretical preparation. They sat and analyzed how they were going to play that series in Australia. Yes, they were bowled out for 36, blown away, but they had prepared, and it eventually showed as they came out of the series to one. Pujara said it in his interview as well. He knew where the Australians were going to attack him, and he was prepared in order to combat that. And to add to the mental skills part, there was a conference at the University of the West Indies Cave Hill campus, and there was this sports psychologist who works with a baseball team, I think, in the US. And he said that mental skills was just as important as going out onto the pitch and practicing facing the balls and stuff like that. And I think that is a culture in the West Indies in general when it comes to mental health. We don't think that is a part of our daily routine. And if we continue to ignore, we are going to see, but I mean, we've already seen a lot of these performances, but if we don't combat it now, we're going to continue to see many, many, many more.
Wayne?
Basically, that we are very much of the same thinking. I think that it is an area that we really need to pay some attention to. And mind you, not necessarily only at the West Indies international level. This thing has to start from the grassroots. This thing has to start from the youth coaching system, whereby we get players to buy in to the preparation aspect, the planning of how they're going to go about playing the game. I mentioned yesterday how impressed I was with the youngster from Bangladesh, Hassan Miraz. Hassan Miraz. You know, I was so impressed with him in that his game seemed to be planned. He knew exactly where he was going to score his runs. He knew exactly the areas that he is strong and where he's going to play within his limitations. Right? And I was impressed, but that comes about, that doesn't just happen by chance. That's what I'm saying. No, these things don't just happen by chance. And the West Indies, getting that area right is a key component in getting West Indies cricket back to that point that we also dearly wish that it would get.
Jason, let's revisit something that you mentioned earlier. You talked about playing spin, and I don't know if it would be fair to say that you may have an unfair advantage. Well, not an unfair, but another advantage there. Having come up, let's say, to some extent, and your dad, Tony King, who I think it's fair to say has the reputation of being one of the best players of spin that Barbados would have produced. And you've got a situation where Kyle is being coached by his dad, who is the club coach at Carlton. Watching that dynamic, how does that work, or how was that being working, that father and son combination, not only as it relates to playing spin, but generally speaking, what's our dynamic? Is that like?
Well, Philip, I don't know if to say if it was an unfair advantage or if it was unfair to me, because I don't know if Basil came up in that with that same amount of pressure where persons expect you to perform at minimum as well as or then better than your father. And that is not, that I could tell you, in my case, that was not easy. In terms of the dynamic, what I have found is sometimes, and we hear it all the time, you tend not to listen to the advice that your parents give you because you believe that they're persons that you're around all the time and they have a role to direct you. But you tend to rebel sometimes and feel that what they're saying is tantamount to nonsense. Sometimes you listen, but generally you tend not to take it all in. With the Shirley Clarke and Kyle Mears relationship though, over the last few years, I've seen it change, over the last couple years especially. And Kyle works really hard at his game. He takes the mental aspect seriously, but is it enough? Because playing at the domestic level, and when I say domestic, I mean domestically in Barbados, the runs come easy. So the lower the level you go, the easier the runs come. So a guy may not have to work as hard mentally to score 100 at club level. He would have to work harder at first class level and most definitely at international level. Now it means you have to transition the level of mental strength that you apply depending on the level you go. But if you apply that firm top level mental strength to every level that you play, it means that you are also practicing that. So the same way that you practice batting in the nets, and that's practicing that technical aspect, you need to practice the mental aspect. And the only way you can practice the mental aspect is being switched on for a period of time. So the only time you get to play cricket and bat for 2 hours, in a lot of cases, to prepare for international or even first class level, is at your club level. So it means that every time you go on bat, you should apply that same level of mental strength to practice that, so that when you get to any level above, you play any game, you are ready and you approach it the same way. One of my things that I toyed with, and I had a conversation with a senior Cricket West Indies official yesterday. I said, I wonder if we took these guys and put them in a room by themselves. I believe firmly that is something that they should have to do. And put them in a room with just a chair. Of course, you pad the room to make sure nobody goes off. But pad the room and put them in a room for 2 hours. No cell phone, no device, nothing. Put them in a room for 2 hours and see what state they are in when they come out. Interview them, ask what they thought about, etc. 2 hours is a session of first class and international cricket. If you bat for 2 hours every time you go to the crease, you invariably you're going to bat for longer than that. Sometimes you get a bad ball, but if you are prepared that every time you go to the crease, you bat for 2 hours, and I'm not talking your entire innings, 2 hours will get you. So if you start at the beginning of a session and you're prepared to bat for 2 hours, you know what that 2 hours feels like. You'll get to the end of that session. You get a chance to break, whether it's lunch or tea or overnight, and you reset and come to bat for another 2 hours again, applying the same basics that you would have throughout the innings that you would have gone through so far. So like Ayana, the mental aspect is very important, but it is not something that can be switched on. So they also have to practice that. And if you think about it, sitting with a psychologist or a psychiatrist for a session cannot prepare you to train your mind to operate for 2 hours at a time. You have to practice it every time you have the opportunity. So even if you go and play a softball or tape ball match, practice the same mental techniques, mental practice that you would need when you go to that international level.
I want to say something quickly, Philip, if you allow me. I played cricket with a guy called Arlington Hunt, one of the men whom I have the utmost respect for, not only as a cricketer, but as for his knowledge of the game. And there's something that I detected about him during the years that we played together. If Arlington Hunt walked down the road and see a group of guys playing softball cricket in the middle of the road and start to play, he's going to play with the same seriousness. He's going to try to bat the rest of the day as if he were playing for YMPC aside against Bikes at Becker's Road. And he's the person who instilled exactly what you're talking about in us, a young group we were then at YMPC. Take every game as seriously as the next. That way you are practicing those skills without even knowing it.
Well, guys, there is a very short window of opportunity to inculcate that mindset in this particular team because they're up against it. So what can we look forward to, Basil Butcher, and in fact, I'm going to throw this to everyone. What can we look forward to on days 4, and if there's a day 5? What would you like to see, and what do those guys need to do?
Before I answer your question, I just want to piggyback on what I heard, because my background, I work with athletes at the highest level, both conditioning, practicing, and so on. And one of the things I notice about young elite athletes, they do not know how to practice to improve their skills over and over and over, which means also not just the physical, it's your approach, which is the mental. And I agree with what all was said here. Every time you play, you have to approach the same way, because that's how you get consistency of performance. As Wayne had said earlier regarding, coming to the conclusion that West Indies put ourselves in a good position and fall apart. I would agree with that because the environment in which these guys are coming up and playing, they don't have to play with such intensity throughout a day. The minute the team lifts their intensity, you see West Indies falter, right? And I always remember my father used to say something to me when he would look at the current crop of players. He would say, I can't blame them, because he used the term always, they have not gone through the drill. And the term, what he meant by the drill, they didn't get the grounding, the level, the standard of cricket that we had in the past, where you had to be on the top of your game at all times to succeed. These guys get a free ride. And as soon as they run into where the intensity is, they fold like cheap tents or a pack of cards. So yes, I think West Indies cricket has to have a way in which these guys understand how to practice to be an elite player at all phases. But same, what you asked the question, I think we could look forward. I like how we finished today, and I would hope we would come out tomorrow with that and take that intensity to a next level to see if we can get this Bangladesh team out for a very cheap score and make this a game. I'm not saying we would win, but to come with that intensity so we can make it a game.
Ayana, you want to go next?
Yeah, Jason touched on it earlier when he said break it down into 2 hours. I think, just as Basil said, we need to try to get into the lower order of Bangladesh as soon as possible. And instead of looking too far ahead at the result or at day 5 and the target and stuff like that, we should break it down, set small targets for ourselves. Don't try to get to the end of the match in one go, but break it down into small sessions. I would like to be optimistic. Obviously disappointed after the collapse last night. So I'm going to be pretty open-minded, but I like the fight that I've seen in the youngsters so far. And I think this is something that's healthy for West Indies cricket. With a lot of the senior guys sitting out and other guys putting up their hands, it's not going to be very easy for persons to just get back into the main 11.
Jason?
There's 6 sessions left in this game, and we gotta play each one at a time. One of the things which has happened is that we continue to leak runs. If we can there are times when you need to slow the scoring. If nothing is happening, slow the scoring. Now, Bangladesh wants to win this game. So it means that Bangladesh wants to pile on runs to make sure that the runs are too many for us to get. If we can stem the scoring, and there seems to be a major injury with Shakib Al Hassan, who is a key member of their batting and bowling. But the 2 that are at the crease are the ones with the most experience in terms of Mominul and Mushfiqur. And if we can break this partnership and keep the scoring rate down, because yes, we attack, but you would see that when we were batting, fellas had sweepers set from early. It means they're not giving away the boundaries. Blackwood was batting and they weren't giving away the boundaries. Long on and mid wicket were going down. You get a single, but that slows down the scoring somewhat. So we need to stretch the game out. That would give us a better chance, and always be cognizant that in our 4th innings, the bowling is at the stumps. That's what happened a lot last night, especially with De Silva and Blackwood were batting. A lot of the balls were bowled at the stumps. Now they have orthodox spinners bowling. So the ball is either going to be straight or it will turn with the hand. So it's going to do one of two things. Now, the bounce may be a little unpredictable. We're going into the fourth day. There's been a lot of sunshine, so the moisture's coming out of the wicket. But invariably, the ball is going to be bowled at the stumps. So if you can defend your stumps, and some bad balls will be bowled, and you can get those balls away, it means that Bangladesh has to change their line of attack. And once they do that, it's something that can work in our favor. But we have to be mentally strong and be thinking of that all the time in order to get a result in our favor. And we may not win this test, but if we can see that the thought is going down the road of which I just described, it means that they're understanding the game. And that's what you want to see, that they're understanding the challenges, how to overcome them, and how to improve on them. Not just that you see it one game and then the next game they go back to where they were before.
Before you say anything, let me apologize. I understand that you would not have come in last too often in your career. Someone had to be last today, and it just fell to you.
Well, I don't consider it last, though. I consider it next. I'm just the next one. But yes, winning this match, the chances of winning this match for West Indies very, very remote. But as some of the other panelists have indicated, I am heartened by some of what I saw. It was just that collapse towards the end. And I think that came about mainly because you have a group of players who really did not trust their techniques, their defense against spin bowling on a helpful pitch. I am almost sure that if that was a situation where there were faster bowlers or medium paces bowling, Kemar Roach would not have played the shot that he played. I think it was a case of desperation among a group of players who did not trust their defense against quality spin bowling on a helpful track. Having said that, though, there was some encouragement for the top order, and what we want to see now is that fight. We want to see the players not giving it away, not giving in when the second innings comes around. And of course, well, it's going to start with the bowlers and the approach in the field when the game resumes on the fourth day. But that is basically as much as we can hope for as far as I can see it.
A lead of 218 by Bangladesh with 7 wickets in hand after they scored 430. They're now 47 for 3. West Indies made 259. And the match is well and truly on a big advantage to Bangladesh, but we must always remember this game of glorious uncertainty. So there's still hope for the West Indies fans, I suppose, especially if they can carry out just some of that advice that we've been hearing over the last half an hour. So you've been watching Anything Cricket Test Match Watch. Join us again soon for a review of day number 4.